Welcome to take two of the How to Have the Talk with Your Children challenge. This is take two because this is day 4, take two. And I realized this evening that I actually left out something so important that it was bugging me so much. Talked about it with my husband, and I was like, I'm going to do take two because my heart really is to serve you as a big family mom with 3+ children and how to come alongside your children in a godly way to prepare your children for life and godliness by having the talk. And today, day 4, talking about sons specifically. Anyway, there's a big part. I left it out. My apologies if you already saw that. I'm just going to add in that component here to make sure that this is done well in a way that will really truly serve and equip you. So I'm going to get right into it. First, a little bit of housekeeping. There is a giveaway happening during the live challenge. If you're catching this live, if you're in the week and Friday is not over yet, because it's going to close on Saturday at midnight. Here's the giveaway. You can win your choice of any of the Moms of Many Method mini courses simply by commenting on the video and the action post that will be dropping in the Big Family Moms group that is linked in today's video. So if you'd like to participate in that to get the most out of this challenge, to really equip you and prepare you to have the talk with your own children, and you'd like to have some fun with the giveaway, that's how you do it. So day 4, talking with sons. I have a firstborn daughter, and after her, we were blessed with 6 sons in a row. We now have 7 sons and 2 more daughters, but for 6, well, not 6 years, but for 6 children in a row, we were blessed with all sons. So I felt comfortable, relatively comfortable talking to my firstborn daughter when the time came, which I talked about yesterday in day 3. But when it came to my sons, I had a little bit of hesitation. I certainly knew I was more than qualified to have that conversation as their mother, and there wasn't anything really bizarre or wrong about me as a mom talking to them ever about sex or anything, related to that topic. We really felt this kind of conviction that it would be best for us, certainly, to have a man walk alongside our sons into manhood. So because their dad is, a good, godly man, he was the one who stepped up to the plate and said, this isn't just a homeschool topic. This is really, not just an academic subject. And not all homeschool is just academic, but he was like, I'm going to do this. Even though he didn't grow up in a Christian family, he didn't have this experience, neither did I, first generation Christian. So we just trusting God, preparing how he's going to do it. And so today I'm going to share with you how we did that. Real quick, if you don't have, for whatever reason, a dad to walk alongside your sons in this conversation, when you deem the time is right to have that conversation, whether sooner or later, depending on when you feel your children are going to hear about this anyway. If they go to public school, it's going to be earlier. Right? If they go to any institutional school, it's going to be earlier. We homeschool, so we felt we could push it till closer to 11, 12. We're comfortable with that. But if you don't have that in your life, that's okay. I would encourage you to do 2 things. One is to certainly pray about it and ask God to show you who would be a good, godly man in your life, in your circles, maybe your family or your friends or your church circles, who could come alongside your son in a way that's appropriate, it's honoring, and walk alongside your son, at least for that initial conversation. And maybe you'll pick it up from there, or you'll collaborate together to be a resource to him. Because my sons have since told me that they really appreciate that dad, as a guy and as a trusted man, was the first one to pull back the curtain when it came to finally answering the question of just exactly how do the babies get in the mommies, right? The final piece that was missing for that part of the ongoing conversation. So I think I said 2 things, but I'm having pregnant brain right now. So that's all that's coming to mind. So I'm going to trust God that that's what I was supposed to say and move on. So how my husband did it initially is when our twin sons, who were born after our firstborn daughter, they're 2 years apart, started to hit 11, 12. Now, they had already naturally started asking just because they get more developmentally observant. And they're like, okay, I know mom's getting pregnant basically every 2 years. But how does the baby get in there? And that's a really valid question. We've chosen to defer it for a little bit later because we feel it's a kind of a heavier toolbox kind of question. And we wanted to be presented in the context of marriage, of the picture of Christ in the church. We wanted to give more of a worldview wrapping around it. So we waited till a little bit later. Though some people, if you choose to just give the biological answer earlier, that's certainly, power to you. That's your parental discretion, the way I see it. So my husband chose to simply go on a private walk with each of his three sons, who the twins have a brother who's 16 months after them. So they're as tall as each other now. People think they're triplets. So yeah, he just arranged a one-on-one walk kind of in the evening, paired it with a treat. I think they went for ice cream. And they were like, well, I'm going for a walk for dad, and he just made it a very organic, natural conversation. He's like, hey, you know how you've asked, how do the babies get inside of the mommies? Well, now's the time for me to talk to you about it. And I wasn't privy to the conversation exactly how it went down. So it was a good sanctification moment for me to just empower my husband, as a homeschool mom who takes the lead on most of the teaching, the formal teaching, and he doesn't so much because he works in the trades. He's gone 5 days a week. He works hard in that area, and that's how his main gig contribution. Mine is home with the children, caring for the home and the homeschool. So it was sanctifying for me to say, you can do this. You're just as much their parent as I am. God is equipping you and blessing you to speak to them in just the right way at just the right times, to give you the words, just like he gave the words to fishermen to speak in front of royalty, and to proclaim the gospel. So I chose to trust that God had appointed my sons, our sons, to be blessed and walked alongside into manhood at this time in this way with this person. So that was good for me, and it was good for them. And we afforded them privacy with that initial, reveal talk, the big reveal. My husband's so much more relaxed than I am. I think I gave much more of an introduction to the talk than he did. And yeah, the talk was over. He pretty much just, explained to them the final pieces that were missing in the puzzle for them, of just like, they knew they had sperm in their body, and they knew it had some function. They knew that women had eggs in their body, and they somehow had to meet, but they didn't know how they met. So the intercourse part of it, right? They didn't really know about erections yet. They didn't really know about intercourse because no one had told them. And we had that homeschool advantage. So, but they were going to find out sooner or later. So that's how that went down. And each of our sons, some of them are quieter pupils. One of our twins is more gabby, and they just talked about it. And then they changed, moved on with the conversation, talked about some other stuff because they were out with dad and going to get an ice cream. And there you go. So it was just a very natural part of another conversation. And then it was filed away in their banks of knowledge. And dad let them know that mom knew about this conversation. We could certainly have this conversation, and we would pick up this conversation because there was more to share from here. And I'm going to talk about that tomorrow and how to kind of move forward once you've had the big reveal conversation. What are some ways that we handle then other things, other elements to talk? So I'm going to get into that a little bit today and even more tomorrow. So that's how dad did it initially, walking alongside our sons, 3 of them so far. And it'll be really natural and easier to do it with the other 4 when the time comes, because once you've done something once, it's a lot easier to do it again, right? The first time is usually the big stage fright. And you're like, oh my gosh. And once you do it, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And it actually went pretty well. And you just feel a lot more confident, like with anything in parenting. So this past summer, was it this year or last year? Okay, like it's a blur, right? Because of the pandemic, like the years are blending into each other. So sometime in the last 2 years, my husband took out the boys for a father and son annual camping trip, which they do every June. And you have to be 7 years old to go. It's a big to do. And they went for like 5 days to Algonquin Park here in Ontario, and they had a great time. And my husband decided that this was a good time because of their age to pick up the conversation and to go a little bit deeper into it. Where at 11, that was just the big reveal of intercourse, basically. But there were some other aspects that he really wanted to impress upon them and unpack them. So he had a conversation after, it was dark and the younger set of boys had gone to bed. They're roasting marshmallows on the fire and just chilling and relaxing. And he said, hey guys, and this is the 3 of them together, but they'd all had their private talks. Hey guys, I have some stuff I want to share with you. I haven't shared with you before, edify them that you're old enough now to hear this stuff. So he first started, actually, from what I understand, because he relayed it to me after they got back, some harder stuff from our family history, some harder stuff in his own backstory that happened when he was a kid. I'm not going to get into, but you can probably catch what I'm throwing down. There's some criminal level stuff that happened in his life, sadly. And he chose to unpack that a little bit because the boys didn't know as a fabric of our family history. So he wanted them to know so that they weren't in the dark and they wouldn't find out from some other relative, which is always so weird, to find out about something really serious that happened in your family line, right? Especially when it involves sex and criminality and all that stuff. So he talked about that, and so that they knew. He also chose to talk about some particular things that would affect sons, maybe more than daughters, not exclusively, but he wanted to talk to them about, particularly about lust and visually, like how to handle it when you see a young lady at the beach in a bikini. Or how would we recommend that they handle situations? Suddenly they're just things just kind of pop up on them and they're like, oh no, what do I do? There's a book I'm going to recommend to you called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. I'm going to link it in the video today, which is so good. We've used it. It's called Porn Proofing Your Children. And we've used it with all our kids kind of around 11 once they start to have access to screen time or something maybe would pop up on them. Or who knows, they're at a friend's house, something happens. We want to equip them to be able to handle it if all of a sudden they come across something where people are not dressed fully and they're like, something's wrong here. And like that's called porn when people are not probably dressed or they're naked, and to give them a strategy of how to handle that with their eyes, with their heart, with themselves. And it's just such a good book. I've used it with my sons, with my daughters. It's one of my most recommended books. I have it linked to my website because I think it's such a great tool to come alongside parents, especially in this day and age, because of the addictive nature of pornography, which is more addictive than heroin. So that's really serious stuff. Such a good book. There's that. So they'd already had that talk with us before, but he wanted to take it a little further and talk to them about, how to handle that, how to talk about, nocturnal emission, because it's going to start to happen. What's our stance on masturbation? And if you want to know about it, you can comment below. We can talk about it more privately. I'm not going to go out public on that on YouTube. So I wanted to share that with you, that's some of the unpacking that he did later, maybe only 2 years later, really, when the time was right. And it would be more appropriate because, they're not really interested in girls right now, like 13, 14, right? But he wanted them to have a little heads up. And I realize these conversations are a few years early, but that's the whole point, is to get to the front of the line before the kids start to get exposed to all of the other more twisted and tainted and confusing expressions of sex and sexuality, so that they have a biblical framework of what is sex. It's good. It was created by God. Its purpose is for the glory of God and the blessing of mankind, that it's for within marriage is an expression of love and intimacy. It's a picture of Christ and his church and the fruit that flows from it, so that when they come across expressions that are, very confusing or that are very tempting, that they have a framework to fall back on, right? They have a trusted resource to talk to, not exclusively only their dad, their mom, and some other trusted people in our life, and that they feel comfortable having that kind of conversation with. We wanted to encourage them, so he did that at this time to be the hero, to be the noble one, right? To be the chivalrous one who would guard a woman with his eyes, who would not take advantage of an easy opportunity to ogle a girl just because she was choosing to wear the equivalent of a bra and panties in public, just because she's on sand, right? And he wanted to talk to them about how to guard their hearts by keeping their hearts pure, if they should come across pornography or other things that are, skirting the edge of lust and lustful addiction online or wherever. And he also gave them a framework of how to think of girls and how to relate to girls as they did start to become a little more aware of girls, as the girls around them were beginning to mature and develop and be more attractive and lovely. And that's all well and good in its own season and time, but it's still too early to even think about marriage at 14, right? And we don't play the dating game. We won't mess around with that. Like, if you're not serious about getting married, we have a stance on that. That's a whole other talk for another time. So he talked to them about basically treating them like sisters, because that's what the scripture says in 1 Timothy 5, 1-3, just to treat other women like sisters with all purity of heart, with less physical affection. So our sons have a really good relationship with their older sister Eden. They can laugh and talk on the couch during a movie, whatever. They were doing it tonight, and just be thigh to thigh, whatever. And that's great. But with someone you're not related to, or even like your cousins, put a little bit more, maybe a 12-inch gap there, just to honor them like you would a sister, right? In all purity of heart, but also giving her a little more physical space just to really honor her. So that's how he started with our sons and then kind of developed from there. And this is an ongoing conversation. It's going to keep going. And I'm going to talk more about that in day 5 video, where we, unpack moving forward and some of the other sometimes heavier conversations that naturally fit in this ongoing conversation between parents and children, or between whoever is, qualified and willing to step up to have this conversation, come alongside our children and equip them for life and godliness in this area. So if you're struggling to meaningfully connect with your own children, sons or daughters, but especially with your sons, I want to recommend to you the Moms of Many mini course that goes into connecting with your children, especially in a big family context. That can be challenging. You have so many kids. You're like, how do I do this? I can see how 2 kids, how that works, but how does that work with 4 or 7? So there's a really great course that I put together because I get asked all the time, how do you do that? And I didn't know what I was doing when I had young kids and was looking ahead to the future of having many, more than average children. So I'm so glad that I can offer this as a resource, my tips, my tricks, biblical encouragement, the strategies we use all the time to connect with our different children, different personalities, different ages and stages of life. So this can really bless and equip you. Like I said, it was easy to talk to my daughter. It's a little more challenging to connect and know that I'm really connecting with my sons, because, men are from Mars, women are from Venus kind of thing. And sometimes they feel that, especially as they're getting older and they start to pull away from mom, which is appropriate. And also how to distinguish some red flags, the difference between just a quiet, introverted guy who's just, guarding his privacy versus somebody who's drowning, right? Because there's a difference. So that course is there for you. It's linked to today's video. Thank you for your grace if you saw both version 1 and version 2 of this video. I hope it was a blessing to you. And look out tomorrow. There's going to be a bonus video where I interviewed 2 of my oldest children to get their take on what it was like having the talk, and some other really great questions to get their insight, as well as some of their advice for other parents who are looking, and preparing to do this for the first time. So I hope that's a blessing to you, and I look forward to connecting with you in day 5. God bless you.